Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello, my name is Dr. Himanshu Tyagi and I am teaching this course on heat and mass transfer. Today we would like to conclude the first part of the radiation lectures that we have been looking at. Before we do that, let us do a brief recap of what we have done till now. We have we started off with the spectral black body emissive power figures. Last time we have introduced the concept of radiation intensity, which is given by the symbol I, and we looked at it quite extensively for the case of emitted radiation intensity. So, we put a subscript E below I, that E stands for emitted, and this is the expression with which we define the value of IE, which is defined as the rate at which radiation energy dq dot is emitted in the theta and phi direction per unit area normal to this direction and per unit solid angle in that direction. So, with that definition, we can simplify this particular equation to this equation given over here by using the definition of the differential solid angle. So, I think we spent a lot of time on this last time, and I repeatedly said that this allows us to figure out just by the process of thought that for two given surfaces over here, we want to figure out if surface 1 is at some temperature T1, what are the factors on which the amount of radiation emitted which is intercepted by the surface 2, this particular amount, what are the parameters that it depends on. So, we had figured out these set of 6 parameters, which are primarily area A1, A2, theta 1, theta 2, R, which is the distance between them, and the temperature of the body 1 itself. So, then we went on and did some solved example as well, and before we did that, we defined the emissive power given by the symbol capital E, which it turns out is it in the form of watts per meter square, and that is defined by this expression over here. So, if you look at this expression, then this definition, which is the rate at which radiation energy is emitted per unit area of emitted surface, which is given over here dq dot divided by dA, it makes sense. The expression turns out with this cos theta and sin theta components. Then we had calculated its value for a hemisphere, assuming that I is constant. So, in this particular case, why are we able to assume I is constant? Because in nature it appears that there are a lot of diffuse emitters, and of course, black body is that particular assumption which allows us to make this particular diffuse emitter case, and all the emissions in all direction theta and phi are diffuse. So, I comes out of that particular integral. So, like you can see over here, because it is a constant as per our assumption, all we have are the two angles over here, and this we can easily integrate, and we get very simple and nice equation that capital E is simply the solid angle pi star radian multiplied by IE. So, it turns out to be very simple, and further if we are having that black body assumption as well, then E we can represent with EB, because I can put the subscript B for black body, which is the same EB which is given by the Stephen-Boltzmann law, and there it turns out it is sigma T to the power 4. So, I can equate these two equations, and now finally I am able to write that for a black body the emitted radiation intensity is very simple expression, simply sigma T to the power 4 divided by the solid angle pi. So, do not get confused that we are talking of hemisphere, but we are not taking 2 pi. So, this is a very typical case where students get confused, and we always used to think that if we are calculating what is the total rate of energy leaving per unit area for a hemisphere, it should be E divided by 2 pi, but there is no 2 over here, and the reason for that is because we are integrating it with sin theta and cos theta. So, please do this exercise yourself over here, and you will see yourself then we are taking the projected area over the whole hemisphere, it turns out to have a half component over there. So, 2 pi gets multiplied by half, eventually we get pi. So, it is correct. Then we looked at very interesting solved example where we have this blue surface 1 represented in blue color and then surface 2 represented in red color over here. So, we know both the areas, we know the temperature of surface 1, we know the angles at which they are located. So, theta 1, theta 2 are known, and we know the distance that separates them. So, the distance square is much larger than the individual area. So, we can make simple assumptions, and over here what we wanted to do is first calculate the value of omega, the solid angle subtended by surface 2 when being viewed from surface 1. And then we wanted to calculate q dot 1 2, which is that this, since surface 1 is at a finite temperature of about 500 Kelvin, how much of the radiations emitted by it are intercepted by surface 2. So, over here these examples we can take from real life as well. In real life, surface 1 could be some sort of a transponder, or it could be a heat source, and surface 2 is a receiver. And then it is very important to figure out that how much of that energy which is leaving surface 1 through radiative heat transfer is able to hit surface 2. So, these are real life examples which we are taking over here, and we solved for both cases. So, the solid angle we have calculated over here, very simple, and in order to calculate q dot 1 2, we have to use this particular expression, and we have values of all these things are known to us now, and I value we have figured out by making the black body assumption over here. So, we plug all those particular variables in, and we get a very small number in this particular case, because the areas are very small for both cases. And then we looked at this exercise over here, that if let us say after looking at this number we wanted to increase it 10 times or 100 times, because these are some of the engineering challenges which lot of engineers face, that we have a particular design which is not giving us the optimum heat transfer. I want to enhance the heat transfer 10, 100 or 1000 times. So, we have to justify it by doing calculation whether it is physically possible. Whether it is impossible, then we have to communicate that in this particular scenario it cannot be done. So, we figured out these again 6 variables which are very important by in this particular calculation, and in certain cases it turns out that all 6 are correlated in order to give q dot like this. So, over here we can recognize area A1, A2 is coming over here, then distance r square is in the denominator, theta 1, theta 2, but where is the temperature term? So, it is kind of hidden inside over here. How is it hidden? Because if it is a black body, then I and T are directly related with one another. So, this turns out to be very long calculation and complicated equation, but believe it, it is actually in reality very simple thing that we are doing. So, this is very interesting concept. Then one more thing we have looked at over here, which is the word spectral we have used. Again, this depends on defined to related to the wavelength. So, we have already introduced this spectral quantity I lambda E. So, I E we already have. So, we are now introducing the lambda concept over here, and very interesting thing that we find over here is that once we define it in this way. So, there is the green quantity over here. So, it is just the additional thing is that it is per unit wavelength compared to I E, which means we can correlate them with one another with this particular integration over here. So, I think these are things which are very simple, and students can revise these particular things. Now, we will go ahead and look at some new concepts as well. So, let me graphically show what we are going to look at today. So, for looking at IE, we have considered a surface over here which emits in a particular solid angle, and this zenith angle is known. If you know the projection, then this particular azimuth angle is also known. So, I know this particular area over here, small area dA, and this solid angle is small solid angle d omega, and we are interested in seeing how does this particular thing IE is something which is coming out from here because it is being emitted. And based on this, we could correlate capital E with a function of IE. And what was that function? It turned out to be IE theta phi cos theta, sin theta, d theta d phi, and for hemisphere our theta goes from 0 to pi by 2, then phi goes from 0 to 2 pi over here, and this is the value of E, which is the emissive power. Emissive power. Now, I will consider an opposite case. Opposite in the sense, let me reverse the direction of this intensity, which means now that surface which is kept at the origin, this surface is still dA, but instead of emitting, now it is actually accepting radiations from all the directions. So, the first direction in which it is accepting radiation is this direction d omega, which is given as the zenith angle is theta, the projection is over here, this angle is phi, and now the radiation is actually coming in the reverse, incident on this, which means it is like this. So, we are talking of the same surface dA, everything else is same, but instead of emitted we are now talking about incident radiation, which means now I can write it in terms of not I e, but I I theta and phi. Earlier it was over here I e theta phi, because this is the emitted radiation intensity. Now, we are looking at I, which I will call as the incident radiation intensity. Everything else concept remains same. The zenith angle could be theta in one case, theta for the emitted case it is certain theta, for the incident case it could be another theta. The zenith angle could be something over here, and for the incident it could be something, and the solid angle was d omega here, and here also it is d omega. So, it is kind of analogous to one another, it is just that the direction has totally reversed. In the emitted case, a surface is emitting radiation in all the direction in the hemisphere. In the incident case, this particular surface is actually being incident by radiation from all across the hemisphere. And this hemispherical concept is very important in radiative heat transfer, and we will understand it in just a little while over here with the help of certain examples, because cricket is going on today. So, I will give some example from the cricket stadium also, from real life as well as from theatre and other places where radiations are coming on a surface. Before we do that, let us complete this particular analogy over here. So, like in this particular case, we are having definition of E. There is a flux variable which is defined over here, which is given the symbol G, which is known as the irradiation, and its units is watts per meter square, and it is similar to the emissive power whose units was watts per meter square, which means whatever I had written over here in the blue ink, I can repeat the whole thing over there, same thing with just the subscript I in this particular case, which means the relationship between I e and capital E is the same as the relationship between I and G. So, let us see that with the help of few examples. So, let me first write that particular definition, d theta d phi, and theta over here is from 0 to pi by 2, and then phi goes from 0 to 2 pi. Okay. Now, we will look at some very interesting examples and try and see some interesting cases where I am going to focus on these two parameters. One is G, which is the irradiation on a particular surface, and the other one is I. Okay. So, in order to figure out the relationship between them, I am going to make one assumption of diffuse So, in the earlier case, in the blue case, we have the diffuse emissions. Here we will have the diffuse incident radiation. What does that mean? That over earlier we had taken I e theta phi as a constant, IE, which was a constant. Here we are going to take incident radiation intensity theta phi. Can it become a constant? Which means it is neither dependent on theta nor on phi. Which means in the earlier case, by doing that particular integration, we had figured out that it turned out that E and IE has this relationship. Without doing any integration in this side, I can write the same relationship over here, provided it is diffuse. And over here also the same relationship I can write, that provided it is diffuse. So, I like to solve things first mathematically and then try and see the physics behind it. So, mathematically we have figured out that for the diffuse radiation, II is a constant. Do not get confused, there are a lot of subscripts IE, II, and there will be one more IR. So, just follow along for a little while. II stands for the incident radiation intensity. What does it mean that it is diffuse? So, I will give that example. But if it is diffuse, mathematics shows us that the total irradiation, which is kind of a flux because it is given in watts per meter square, that is simply equal to the solid angle pi, which turned out to be was 2 pi again divided by 2. So, it turns out to be pi into II. This is for a hemisphere. Now, let us try and see where will it be applicable. In what condition can I find a surface in real life like this surface over here, in which all directions intensity is constant. If all the directional intensities are constant, then only I can write theta and phi, there is no dependence. I can draw the same thing for a surface in the 2 dimension as well, it will turn out to be a semicircle over here. So, in this particular case, in all direction over here, this is constant, which means now let me go to the cricket stadium during afternoon, player is standing over here, let us say on a surface. Can he claim that for him II is constant, which means can he write that in all direction incident, what was II? Incident radiation intensity. Can it be constant in a flat ground during afternoon around maybe 12 noon to 1 p.m. on a sunny day? That is first question. Second is that the same thing he is claiming during the cloudy day. So, on the cloudy day a lot of clouds are there, and then he is claiming like this on a cloudy day. Then the third thing could be during the day and night match, where lot of floodlights are placed in the stadium over here. So, let us say this is a big stadium. So, maybe for cricket I have to draw a big oval over like this. So, there are stadium lights over here on all sides. So, maybe he is standing at this particular point, which means we can start from this particular example. So, the answer is it will not be hemispherical in this particular case, because from one particular floodlight over here. So, this is a floodlight in this direction, huge amount of intensity is incident over there, and the similar thing is over here. From other directions little bit may be coming. So, from the perspective of that particular cricketer, we can perhaps say it may look something like this, and I am going to put some green arrows over here which represent the amount of irradiation which is coming over here. So, the length of these arrows indicate the intensity of incident radiation, which means over here there is a theta component, there is a phi component, it is not equivalent to a constant, and that is seen graphically over here. Like if I am standing in this particular room and I can count, let us say 4 tube lights or bulbs over here. So, when I am incident, if I change my theta and phi with the neck and with the rotation over here. So, if I am rotating like this left and right, then my phi is changing. If I pull my neck up and down, then my theta is changing. So, if I look vertically up, theta is 0, then I am looking straight, theta is 90 degree. So, at particular theta and phi, I am getting lot of radiation, because those directions I am facing, a bulb or tube is there, but at other locations there is no much radiation is coming, only little bit reflected is coming, which means if I draw my location over here and at particular theta and phi, in some places the value will be high, maybe there is a bulb over here, bulb over there, other places that value is low. There is no bulb in front and then this is high, then. Which means the diagram that I will see is, it is not diffuse incident radiation, it is like this. And the other way of figuring it out is, we have seen in matches in football and cricket, that if a player is standing over here, generally we can see if the player is moving, especially in football, if we, and even in cricket, we can see 3 or 4 shadows surrounding that particular player, which kind of indicates that there are 4 very big floodlights over here. Let us now imagine that on a cloudy day, some person is standing and then it is so cloudy that it is not very dark, but it is hard to figure out. It has happened sometimes to us and many of our friends also. We can see that during monsoon season it becomes so cloudy, it's hard to tell where the location of sun is. Because of our clock we can tell it is 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock. So, sun must still be up somewhere, but it is so diffuse, the clouds are so much surrounding us that you are kind of getting the same intensity from all directions. And then when you see below on the ground, we can even see that there is no shadow which is surrounding us, because if we are standing inside a perfectly diffuse irradiation, it is very difficult to see a shadow, because from all sides equal intensity is coming or incident on us, not the coming word is not, it is incident on us equally from all the sides, which means on a cloudy day we can see this particular kind of thing, and that has happened because sun is always there. We are not able to see because that light has been scattered and diffused because of the presence of all the cloud and other things. All that diffusion of light which is taking place, that has created that effect. And there is an exact opposite effect of that also when person is standing at a place where there is no atmosphere. So, we could not do it ourselves, but there was a historical precedent that when man has landed on the moon at that particular place, we can see those photographs. So, there on moon there is no atmosphere. So, even during daytime and night time, either there are certain places where we are seeing the sun, or at all other places the sky is dark, which means at that particular point if a person is standing, that is the extreme example of a spotlight. So, if a person is standing on the moon surface over here, and let us say sun is present at this particular point, then only one source of intensity is coming over here. This is the solid angle, and everywhere else it is 0. So, on 0 in all the directions. On the other hand, if this again we come back to that particular example on the cricket stadium during the afternoon, the same person is on the earth. So, if it is on the moon, then example is like this. If it is on the earth, let us say afternoon 3 p.m., then lot of irradiation is coming from the sun over here, but diffuse radiation is also coming from all the other sides, from the cloud, from the sky and all other places, which means a person standing over here will see a very sharp shadow behind him, but in all directions light is actually coming, because even though sun is on the right hand side, left side and the back side, all everywhere we can see the blue sky or the white cloud, that is all the diffuse radiation which is coming, reflecting and coming to my eye over there. So, these are all examples of different cases of eye as a function of theta and phi. So, this is what I wanted to share with students. The most easiest one to solve is the diffuse case, and for that case it simply turns out that G is equals to pi into II over here. For all other cases we have to integrate it in parts, which means between certain theta and certain phi we have to do integrations, and those things become complicated, but we can always use some computational tools to do that. So, I hope this concept is clear that emissions we have taken, i.e. earlier we have taken this example given in blue. Now, we have also looked at very clearly what happens when incidence of the radiation is there, not just emittance. Now, let us look at the third case. So, this I will put as cases over here. Case 1 was IE. So, this I will write case 1. then case 2 over here I can write was for II. Then very interesting case is there which we are saying, I will write as case 3 over here, and this is something new we will look at. And what is this E plus R? So, E stands as earlier for the emission and R stands for reflection. Which means let us consider a unique case where there is a surface over here and certain incident is irradiated over here. So, I can represent it by the symbol G, because this is what we have just studied in the last slide. So, this one is the irradiation. Now, this black surface over here, it may have certain reflectivity. So, certain portion of G may get reflected over here. So, this I will represent in red color over here. So, reflected part capital R. So, this is the reflected wave, and because it has its own temperature over here, it may be giving out certain emissions by itself, that is emissive power is capital E. Emissive power. Now, let us look at the unique case of some sort of a observer at this particular point. So, we have an observer, some eye could be there or camera or some sort of observing surface could be there. That surface, what it is recording is actually the sum total of R and E, and that is given by the symbol J, where J is given as R plus E, and this is given in flux terms, watts per meter square, and the technical name for this is known as radiosity. So, radiosity essentially is a kind of the incident, the kind of radiation intensity which will be given by this symbol over here, E plus R. So, it is given by IE plus R over here, and its flux is denoted as J. So, what it actually represents is, if I am looking at a particular surface. So, the best example that I can think of is, if let us say that example is not of thermal radiation, but is still of emissions. So, I think I can give that example. If I have a mobile phone like every person these days, and I am let us say standing in the afternoon outside, then already some radiation is being emitted by the mobile phone and it is coming directly to my eye, that I will represent by this emissive power. So, if I am standing in the dark room, let us say, or at night time, so there is no irradiation which is incident on my mobile phone, which means that whatever J I am recording is simply the emissive power which is coming out from the mobile and directly hitting my eye, which means in this case I will say there is no G, there is no R, only whatever E is there, that is equivalent to J. So, if you go back to slide, what I am saying is G is 0, R is 0, which means J is equal to E. In other form, over here I will say radiosity is simply equal to emissive power. If I am in the dark room, you understand why? Because in the dark room, whatever I have switched on light coming out from here, it is hitting my eye directly, that is the emission, and my eye is detecting whatever radiosity, it is the same as the emission. But now let us say I take the same mobile phone and I go outside in the afternoon when the sun is there. Then what is happening, of course, is we have to always go and increase the brightness of this particular screen. Why? Because now some irradiation from the solar irradiation is hitting this particular surface, which means G is now non-zero, and some part of it is getting reflected and hitting my eye as well, which means now my eye is going to compete between the reflected portion of the solar spectrum and E. So, I have to artificially go and increase the brightness. By increasing brightness, I am increasing the emissive power of my mobile. The only caution I will give is that this emission is not thermal radiation. So, that part is wrong, other part is correct, that if it was even thermal radiation, I can increase the temperature over there, but not in electronics somewhere else. So, what example we are getting over here is the radiosity is simply the sum of the reflected wave from any given surface. So, if I call it surface 1 over here, and the original emissive power which was coming from that particular surface. So, in other words, if I have a parameter called reflectivity rho, I will define it in the next few slides in just a little while. So, I can say this is actually a function of G and a function of E. So, this J is simply a function of G and E. In other terms, I can write J as, again I will use that particular double integral, and now instead of using II and IE, I will use this parameter from here. I will plug that in over here, that the emitted plus reflected radiation intensity combined, function of theta and phi into cos theta, sin theta, d theta, d phi. I do this double integral, I get the value of J, which is defined as radiosity. So, you can see this red star equation, and if you go back 2 slides over here, and these equations which I am bordering now, this red star and this one, all three are kind of similar, at least to me they appear very similar. How? In the first equation, the I is a relationship with IE, second relation G has the relationship with II, and the third relation J has the same relationship with IE plus R, which means, is there a way I can make that again assumption which I have made earlier, that if this IE, if the diffuse radiation is taking place, which means, can I write simply J is equals to pi IE plus R, like I have done earlier, going back over here. This is this particular assumption over here and this particular assumption over here. So, if I may do that, I may kind of generalize these three equations over here and write that for diffuse case. In the first case, we get I equals to IE. For the incident case, we get G equals to pi II. For the radiosity case, we get this into IE plus R. So, all the equations are very similar, the same relationships they are having with one another, and I think this is how a recurring theme in our nature, that one phenomena and the other phenomena are kind of similar with one another, which means if I spend lot of time and understand one of the concepts, then other concepts I will be able to understand very quickly, provided I have understood the first concept very nicely. I hope students are able to understand what I wanted to explain over here. If so, let us look at some very interesting parameters which are known as the property of the substance, and these we will call as the radiation properties. And here again we will make use of these kind of emissivity, absorptivity, reflectivity and transmissivity. So, let me define these parameters over here. So, we will use these Greek symbols over here. So, rho is usually defined for reflectivity, tau is defined for transmissivity, alpha of course is for absorptivity, and emissivity is given by epsilon. So, we will look at all these 4 cases, but we will spend maximum time on emissivity, then understand it very carefully, and we make the very good understanding of emissivity, then other parameters we will be able to understand very quickly. So, with that background, let us go ahead and look at emissivity first. So, what I want to explain right now is about emissivity. and we will start off with the very simplest case in emissivity. Let us start with black body. So, let me go ahead and draw the black body spectrum. So, this is the black body emissive power spectral at given wavelength, and then we have something like this over here. So, this whole thing is at some temperature T. So, I am writing that temperature T over here. Now, what I do is I take a body which I know is not a black body. So, some real body I take and I try and heat it to the same temperature as the black body. So, I keep the temperature same and I measure its spectral emissive power as well, which means its E B lambda I want to measure again. So, I do the measurement and I did it at discrete wavelengths, and let me make that plot. So, this is some sort of a experiment I am assuming that I did, let us say, and these are the red dots I am getting for the actual body. So, that is not a real body, I mean that is not a black body, it is a actual real body. So, I did lot of experiments, I get this particular curve which I am showing in red color, then I join them together and I get this kind of a, this is also at the same temperature T, but the original one in blue was for the black body, and this red one is from some actual body. Now, what I am going to do is just below it I am going to make another plot which will also have a spectral characteristic over here, and I am going to put some numbers over here, and that number is, this is 1, 0.5, 0.75 and 0.25. So, without explaining much detail, what I am going to do is I will give the number 1 to all the wavelengths for the black body, and that number which I am defining is something over here. I have not formally defined emissivity or even spectral emissivity, and what I am going to do is I am going to define over here for this particular actual body the ratio at each of these points. I am getting the ratio. So, what I see is that at all the points, this red points appear to be at half the height of the corresponding blue point over here. So, when I am looking at this point A, I am looking at the corresponding blue point over here. So, this blue point turns out, we will give a new name P. So, A is half the height of P. Then when I look at B, it is half the height of Q. So, I am just taking the ratio between them, then for the red line the ratio turns out to be half for all these points. So, I can make those points over here that all are having the value 0.5, isn't it? It is possible. Then I connect them like this. Then I am just writing some numbers over here, then I say that this emissivity as a function of wavelength is 1, here emissivity as a function of wavelength 0.5. So, this I call as case 1, and I am very interested and curious. So, I do lot of cases. So, let me go to case 2 as well. For that I will pick up a new slide over here. I repeat the same experiment once again. Let us say I do it. This is case number 2, and here again I will do the same thing. I will define some parameter over here. Then I will draw first the black body spectral emission at a given temperature T. This is black body which I am drawing in blue. It will turn out to have number 1 over here in this one, emissivity. So, this is the black body, and now the real body which I had taken, the actual one, it is behaving slightly differently. I did the experiments over here. Now, let us say I did the experiments at certain point like this, but now what I am getting is certain numbers here as well. So, this time it is behaving, I am representing it with green color. They do not mean any of the spectral color, it is just that on the screen I want to show it slightly differently. So, there is some wavelength over here, let us say this is wavelength lambda naught, same wavelength lambda naught, and I am getting behavior like this. And then finally, I did this experiment one more time and I call it case 3, and this is E b lambda, lambda, and this is epsilon lambda lambda, and what I get over here is something like this is the black body spectrum at temperature T, for which emissivity will turn out to be 1, and what I get in red over here, I think what did I start with? I started with red, green, then maybe another color I will use over here. What about orange? So, I will use orange, and here the values which I am getting is kind of like this. And this still is at the same temperature T. So, all my experiments, all these different cases, the red case, green case, orange case, everything is at temperature T, even our black body is at temperature T. So, how am I getting over here? Something like this. Over here. Now, with these 3 cases defined, let me go ahead and write certain equations. So, now I am defining formally what is emissivity. It is given by the symbol epsilon, and I am going to write the first one is for a diffuse gray surface. I can write emissivity is simply the emissive power of that real body divided by the emissive power of a hypothetical black body, and its value is a constant, which means a body which has emissivity which does not change with wavelength. In this equation, the black equation that I have written on the screen, there is no dependence on wavelength. Moreover, why am I calling it diffuse? There is no dependence on, so I will write no dependence on wavelength, no dependence on theta and phi. So, those two angles, the zenith angle and the azimuth angle like this, azimuth angle left and right I am rotating. Wavelength, on these 3 parameters there is no dependence, then it means that for a given temperature my epsilon value is constant, and this, what is this epsilon? Is the ratio of the emissive power of my real body divided by, had it not been real, had it been black body. So, it would emit even little bit more. So, if I put some numbers over here, if let us say the real body is emitting 90 watt, had it been black body it would emit 100 watt. So, emissivity will be 9.9, or I can call it even 90%, emissivity is 90%. If this emissivity is just one number, it is a constant, then I will call it that it is the gray surface. And where is that example? So, in case 1 we can see emissivity is not changing, emissivity of this red body is a constant. So, in this particular case I will call this case 1 that it is a gray surface. So, somehow by luck or by some coincidence, whatever this body that I was doing the experiment on, it turned out to be a gray body, which means gray body need not to have only the emissivity as 0.5. I can make all sort of gray bodies over here. Let me use yellow color. This is another gray body having emissivity 0.75. This is another gray body having emissivity 0.25. So, all bodies where emissivity is not a function of wavelength, it is just constant with wavelength, that is a gray body. And one of those gray bodies may have emissivity even equal to 1. And that is a special gray body which we call as a black body. So, black body is kind of a subset of a gray body. Okay, till this point is it clear? Good. Then we go to case 2 over here, this funny looking green curve. What it is actually telling us that in part A, this regime A over here, it is kind of behaving like a gray body, because over here its emissivity, the way I have shown over here, is 0.75. So, in this region it is a gray body. Then what happens suddenly in the region B over here, in this zone B? Then over here again kind of it behaves like a grey body only in this specific zone, where here the way I have drawn it is emissivity is about 0.25, quarter of that of the black body. When we look at it overall, it is not a grey body, clearly it is not a grey body. Why? Because its spectrum is changing. Emissivity actually is a function of wavelength. Here it is very high, then suddenly gone down, then it has gone down like this. Okay. So, only for selective wavelength it is kind of behaving like a grey body. Overall it is not a grey body, its emissivity is not constant with wavelength. Good. Now, we come to case 3 over here, and it is the funniest of all 3 cases. Why? Because here if you look at the EB lambda of this orange curve, it is actually all over the place. Sometimes it is very high, sometimes it is low. Then if you plot its emissivity using this particular relationship over here, that the ratio of EB as a particular function E divided by EB for different wavelengths, then we will have some sort of E lambda over here. I think I did not write that equation over here, that for non-grey body, let me write it also, for non-grey surfaces or body with spectral dependence. So, we get instead of epsilon we will have epsilon lambda, and that will be the E lambda T, which is the emissive, the spectral emissive power, that is the numerator, denominator is spectral black body emission, this. So, our case 2 and case 3 were coming out from this particular equation, case 2, case 3. This case 1 was coming out from the first equation, because it was a black body, sorry, a grey body. Case 1 is a grey body. So, from here it is coming out. Case 2 and case 3 is coming from the non-grey surface emissivity. And the interesting thing is, it can keep on becoming more and more complicated, and in the most general form we can write it in this form. Do not get frightened, a very long equation over here. Theta, phi and t is a function of ratio of two numbers over here. Maybe I will write it little bit on this side, i.e. theta phi t divided by I b lambda comma t. So, this is the most general form of, and what will its name be? This particular thing, this is the spectral emissivity, the directional dependent spectral emissivity. So, I can write over here, it is the spectral directional emissivity over here. And over here, if somebody asks me what is this denominator over here, it looks kind of familiar. Can the students tell what is this denominator? Simple number. What was the relationship of I with capital E? Just divided by pi, if it is the diffuse, if it is diffuse case. And how do I know it is diffuse case? Because black body, I have written the subscript B. So, this is equal to simply E b lambda divided by pi, that is it. Now, we are coming back over here to this funny looking case number 3. So, even for case 3 we can solve lot of numerical and lot of analysis. How? We can assume for different regimes, like we have done in case 2 for regime A and regime B. Over here also I can assume that in the first regime the effective emissivity is like this, then suddenly it goes down in this zone, emissivity is like this, then it comes up, emissivity is like this, and in this zone it is like this. So, I can kind of use step functions in order to figure out what is going on over here. And this is the same technique that people have been using for lot of time, that if some farmer has a land of a particular shape or size and he wants to measure its area, then we make small intervals over here and then assume that okay, it will be rectangular over here, rectangular there. So, this is some very old technique of approximation, and for small step sizes we can always calculate the area over here, because then I can divide it into squares and rectangles, But if I have to directly calculate the area of this red field, red color area, it is difficult to do that, but very easy for the green one. The same thing we are doing over here is that this funny looking orange emissivity spectral behavior very difficult to figure out, but if we divide it into these red interval zones, then it becomes very easy to do that. So, I hope with that particular understanding, the first parameter that we wanted to look, the radiation property, we have looked at very nicely over here, and maybe some numbers I can also give that students may get some idea about these for different materials. So, there are certain materials which are having very high emissivity, very low emissivity values such as metals. So, if you look at metals, the emissivity values are something like 0.02 for copper, and for gold also it is very low value. Then silver again very low, and these are obtained from tables, and I remember these are at room temperature. Then if you look at some non-metals like brick, then this value is actually quite high, and I think this is also the same temperature over here. Now, let us look at the remaining properties, and what were the properties which are remaining that are of interest to us: absorptivity, transmissivity and reflectivity. And all these things are very easy to analyze. Let us assume a slab of thick solid over here. So, this is some sort of a solid, and some irradiation is incident on it on this particular side. So, remember in radiation we are giving as symbol G. This is the irradiation. Now, what can happen to this G? If I put some number over here, maybe this is 100 watts per meter square. So, this flux, what are the possibilities about it? One is that it can get transmitted over here. So, I will write this is the transmitted fraction. Of course, some sort of reflection may also take place over here. So, reflected component as well, and some part of it may actually get absorbed over here. So, it can get absorbed also. So, just as an illustration, I can put some numbers over here that out of that 100, 10% got reflected, 20% get absorbed. Then what is the amount which will be remaining? That is 70 watts per meter square. So, 70% is remaining. So, just by the conservation of these particular quantities, just as I can write that capital G is the sum of these three other G's, that the reflected component plus absorbed component plus the transmitted component. It will so turn out, if I divide it the whole thing by G, I get G reflected by total G, G absorbed by total G plus G transmitted by total G. And these are the same quantities that we have written above. So, the reflected portion turns out to be rho reflectivity, absorbed portion is alpha, transmitted portion is tau. So, it is so simple and straightforward. If you add all of them together, it will turn out to be 1, where this is the reflectivity, alpha, absorptivity and tau transmissivity. So, in this particular example, what are the values that we got? Transmissivity was 70%, absorptivity 20%, reflectivity 10%. So, we add them together, we get 100%. Now, I may ask the students, what are some examples that we can give in real life where rho, tau and alpha values kind of vary? So, if you look at my glasses over here, I purchased it from some optical shop. That shopkeeper, the way he has designed it, which values he has to be very careful about. If I want to have very nice vision, very clear vision, what values he has to keep for reflectivity of my glass and absorptivity? Can you prepare a glass for me where reflectivity is 50%? Then what will happen whenever, because this is a power glass. So, in order to increase my vision, I have used it, but brightness will be reduced if reflectivity is 50%, which means if 100 watts per meter square is entering my eye without the glass, if some reflection is there 50%, then only 50% will come. That is good for particular application where I want to use dark glasses, let us say if I am driving in the sun. For that case, he may want to put high reflection or high absorption, but for simple transparent glasses, he wants to have a material which has very high transmissivity. So, these are things for higher advanced courses, that why are certain materials transparent like dielectrics, like glass, then we even have diamonds and sapphire and opals, those very precious stones. Why are all these things transparent? But whenever we have certain metals, like I have given example, we have copper, we have aluminum, silver and gold, none of them is actually transparent. As a matter of fact, when I purchase mirror from the market, the first surface inside any mirror that we can actually touch is actually the glass, which is the transparent surface. On behind of the back of that particular glass, there is a very highly polished metal surface over there, very, very thin. And that shows that metals actually are having very high reflectivity, very low transmissivity, and from there we are able to get that absorptivity may also be very low, which means now we can see that there must be some connection between absorptivity and emissivity, because metals already have very low emissivity values as well, which brings us to very interesting correlation over here that I will write as Kirchhoff's law. So, in very simple form, the spectral format of the Kirchhoff's law turns out to be a very simple equation like this, and this we will write as the spectral form of Kirchhoff's law. Now, we were talking about the emissivity values. Let us say we take for copper, emissivity value was very, very low. So, it turned out to be 0.03. So, for that particular corresponding wavelength, Kirchhoff's law tells us that at that particular point, we will write this particular thing, and then absorptivity will also turn out to be very low. So, 3% only it is absorbing, 3% it is emitting. What is happening to the rest? Metals cannot transmit, which means automatically we are able to get from here that reflectivity of this particular copper metal must be very, very high, which means 90% or 96, 97% of it is actually being reflected, which means the use of Kirchhoff's law is very, very critical when we are looking at spectral properties. And one of the places where we are looking at spectral properties is a solar collector. So, solar collector is some sort of a black surface, essentially a simplest form of solar collector is a black surface which is put under the sun. So, all the radiations, ideally it has to be engineered in such a way that maximum amount of solar radiation is absorbed, so that it is transferred that energy to the fluid which is flowing perhaps in the form of pipes beneath it. So, the fluid which comes out at temperature enters the collector at temperature T inlet, let us say 30 degrees. We want to come it out outlet temperature very high, so that this particular thermal energy can be used for certain processes, for cooking, for taking bath, for cleaning, even for process industry, for steam generation, for electricity generation. So, these days solar thermal collectors are becoming very, very popular. So, let us look at this particular solar spectrum which is hitting this solar collector. So, I will start it on the new slide over here. So, solar spectrum, we remember from Wien's law, we can draw very nicely over here. Peak for solar spectrum we remember was about 0.5 micron, and most of it is 99% takes place between 0 and 3 micron, which means when we are choosing this black surface, we want to use a metal. Why? Because it will have very high thermal conductivity, but we will need to polish it or paint it with some black material. So, over there if we are using that kind of metal with the black painted metal, we want its absorptivity to be very, very high. because only then all the radiations from the sun will be absorbed, which means in other words the spectral absorptivity that we are looking at in this particular zone. If I draw the emissivity value, I want absorptivity or emissivity to be almost equal to 1 in the solar spectrum, and after that I want it to be 0 throughout. And what is the answer for that? Why do not I want it to be 1 throughout? Why is the black body not the best solar collector? The answer may come if I draw the emission spectrum of the solar collector. So, this was for the sun, now I am drawing it for the solar collector. So, if my solar collector reaches a particular temperature over here, so let us say it reaches around 100 degree or maybe 400 Kelvin, then that peak will come at a very high wavelength, maybe it will come at 10 microns over here. So, the spectrum for that will come out to be over here. So, this is the emission spectrum. I do not want any emission to take place because this is kind of losses for my system, which is where after this particular wavelength 3 micron, I want this particular value to be as close to 0 as possible. Of course, I will just remind students that these kind of spectral coatings are being developed these days, and they are able to reach close to it, but not perfectly 1 at the lower wavelength and not perfectly 0 at the higher wavelength. So, this is really one of the areas which scientists and engineers are coming together, they are doing lot of research, and which actually shows the importance of studying radiative heat transfer very carefully. So, I think with that we have come to the end of this particular lecture. When we meet next time, we will start looking at how does radiative heat transfer behave when it is interacting with 2 surfaces or 3 surfaces or more as well. Thank you very much.